she took another mad bong hit, and now has there's even more smoke.
Yeah, so Xana ripped a big one from her bong
Okay,
and
actually,
puffed it
like,
out. Kind
so
of.
me referring to these towers as bongs kind of fits because this is like a fucking cloud of smoke that makes people start laughing uncontrollably when
And
they
it gets
inhale
bigger
it.
and bigger. Yeah,
And it gets bigger and bigger.
that's a good point. Is this just like the writers slipping in a bong
Ca-
reference?
Canon, the Xanadu cloud is fucking bong smoke.
Canon.
Prove me wrong. Greetings, friends. Welcome back to the LAZOR podcast, the weekly show where we comb through random episodes of classic TV shows with a fine-tooth laser. I'm one of your hosts, Christopher Siege.
I'm your other host, NeoCal.
And this week on the LAZOR podcast, we are reviewing a show as chosen by one of our patrons. If you want to pick a show for us to talk about on this podcast, go to patreon.com/lazorcomb, LAZORCOMB, and you can thrust content
All over
like
our faces.
this upon us, whether we like it or not. So this was chosen by one of our $10 patrons, longtime patron of LAZOR Productions, Bemuse Horseman. Shout out to him.
Yeah,
Uh, he's
been
he's been
around
with
for.
he's been with us for a while now. I only launched the Patreon, I think, like maybe 4 or 5 months ago, but he's been with us pretty much. He was one of the initial subscribers, so
Yeah.
thanks, man. We appreciate it. You interact with us on Twitter a lot, and yeah, you're a fan, and we love you. And with that being said, I'm going to
Yes.
preface this a little bit. Again, Bemused Horseman, we love you and appreciate your support of this and the various other podcasts that we do. But I can't speak for my illustrious co-host NeoCal, but I'm not going to be very kind to this show. And
What was that?
uh, and I will say, Bemused Horseman did say on he did tweet at me that basically, woof, you guys landed on the random number generator landed on one of the worst episodes of this show.
That's how it works, right?
That is how it works. So he asked us not to judge the entire series based on this episode. And I definitely went into watching this with that in mind. However, okay, so I'm trying to be really nice here. Another thing I'm going to preface talking about this episode with is this episode. And what episode are we talking about? I guess I should actually mention that. We are talking about the 15th episode of Code Lyoko, Laughing Fit.
Code Lyoko.
Code Lyoko. Code Lyoko is the show we're talking about. 15th episode, Laughing Fit. It originally aired on December 10th, 2003. So,
What is Code Lyoko, really?
before we get into that, this is clearly a show for children, as is a lot of the shows that we talk about on this and our various other podcasts. But
Yeah.
it is worth noting that I was almost 19 years old when this originally aired, so I wasn't watched. Let's just say I wasn't watching Code Lyoko in December of 2003.
Okay.
So I'm definitely, I don't have any childhood reverence for this, and that's fine. You don't always need to. we've seen things on even this very podcast.
The
The
last
first
one.
episode, the first episode of this podcast. Uh,
Oh,
uh, uh, I'm completely blanking on the name now. The Dark Oracle. That's it.
we got there.
Dark Oracle.
Dark
I'd
Oracle.
never even heard of that show prior to starting this podcast, but you know what? I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's from around this time.
Shockingly, yeah.
Yeah, it was surprisingly good. Um, so with
What do you
that
got
out,
against the French, Christopher? What do you have against the French? That's what I want to know.
well, I'm part English, part Norwegian, so
So a lot against the French. Okay,
yeah, so Code Lyoko was a series that ran for a total of 97 episodes. It ran from 2003 to 2007. Yes, 2007. September
not
3rd,
bad.
2003 to November 10th, 2007. And it is about a bunch of high schoolers who jack into the Matrix, if you will. They go into a virtual world and they're guided by some kind of virtual AI. This show is notable. And indeed, like I had heard of this show prior to it being pitched to us by Bemused Horseman. The reason why I'd heard of it was because Reboot, another show we talk about on another podcast that we do, Alphanumeric, which is coming back very soon. So keep an eye out for that. Um, but Reboot had a follow-up series a few years back now in like 2018 called Reboot the Guardian Code, and it was accused wholesale, like just across the board, including by the creator of Code Lyoko, of being a straight ripoff of this series. So that was how I had first heard of this show. And indeed, I do definitely, after I've watched like the first like half dozen episodes of Reboot the Guardian Code, and now I've watched this one episode of Code Lyoko, and I definitely do see some similarities with the like overall plot and concept.
I would need to watch both in their entirety. Not going to happen, by the way. Um, but I would need to I would need to watch both in their entirety to
Yep.
accurately say this ripped this off. Or similar ideas. There's always overlap, right? Like the second person to write a novel about a murder mystery wasn't ripping off the first guy that wrote it. And now there's thousands, right? Like
Right.
you have to wonder, like, because of the internet was emerging and becoming a household thing, right? You have to wonder, it's like, oh, but what if we could go inside? What about virtual reality? There's going to be overlap there, right? And when do you compare it to? Did the Matrix rip this off? Did this rip off the Matrix?
Did this rip
There's
off
layers.
Tron?
Did
Tron?
the Matrix
Reboot?
rip off Tron? Did Tron
Reboot rip off Tron?
Did Tron rip off Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? When
right.
AKA Blade Runner, like when
So
it's a rabbit hole, but like I said,
but
maybe it completely does, and I don't know.
As someone who has now seen, like I said, one episode of this and about 6 or so episodes of Reboot the Guardian Code, for a team of 4 high schoolers who enter into a computer simulated world, and they have a like AI companion helping them out that is personified as a teenage girl.
Oh, it's okay.
Both of those shows,
that?
both of those shows have that going on.
And do they
So-
go into a chamber to like digitize themselves?
I think they do actually.
Oh, okay, yes. It's kind of feeling like that's a little too similar. Are they French?
They're Canadian, which is close enough.
The worst French. The fake French.
The fake French. Apologies
Okay.
to any French Canadian listeners out there.
Although any French Canadian listeners would absolutely, they make the same jokes, is what I'm trying to stutter out here.
Uh, I, I may have a certain fancy for French Canadian ladies. Is all I'm gonna say. So I don't want to alienate that
Hillbilly
audience
French,
too much.
as real French people like to say.
Uh,
Why is there always like jokes in the media growing up, especially in the 90s, about like French women not shaving and being hairy? You recall that?
yeah, it was a stereotype. I don't know. I have no idea.
Anyway.
Well, actually, so I remember in the around or like the mid to late 90s, there was a channel in Canada called Showcase. And when it initially like when the channel initially launched, which I believe was in like 1997, the channel had a reputation for showing like foreign films with a ton of nudity in them late at night.
Like
And this was on just
soft
like
core, yeah.
and this was on just regular TV. Um, but let me tell you, when you're 12 years old, this is like the most exciting shit ever.
You might see like side boob,
Oh no, it was
maybe
more
a
than
shot of
that.
a nipple. Yeah.
Like no, full on, like full frontal, like bush and everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so like
Right, right. Yeah, I
when you're
can
a
recall
12-year
some
old boy
things.
in 1997, like this is like the most exciting thing ever. Um, there were a lot of French films that they showed that were usually subtitled. Of course, I didn't pay attention to the subtitles because that's not why I was there. But
Because I couldn't read.
that's not why I was there. Um, but they're the women in these movies, I will say, did have a lot of hair going on in various parts of their bodies.
Okay.
So perhaps that's where the stereotype comes from.
Yes, showcase.
Showcase.
So
For
what?
foreign French films of the French nudie films of the 1990s.
So let's like give a breakdown of what Code Lyoko is.
Yes, let's maybe actually talk about the show we're here to talk about today.
Yeah. So, oh, my screen. Apologies, my screen just went vibrant.
So, uh, Rita Repulsa escapes from the moon, and Zordon is like, Alpha, Rita's escaped. Recruit a team of teenagers with attitudes.
Uh, yeah.
I mean, kind of.
Kind of.
Except in this episode, in this show, it's fucking fart gas.
Okay,
that
so
makes people laugh.
Okay. So I'm gonna try to do the show's like some credit. You're not far off. There's an in basically a bad artificial intelligence known as Xana, Xana. I never caught what that stood for, if it means anything, but they can use
Xanadu.
Xana can use their powers to affect things in the real world to cause shenanigans, right?
Okay.
And that's what happens in this episode, and we'll get into it on this episode. And
okay,
so basically,
so is that what's going on? Because I've watched this episode twice now, and I still didn't know why the fart gas was a thing.
Oh, I'll explain it to you when we get there. Yeah. And basically, when we get there, we get there. They need to go in the digital world to shut down certain hubs or towers that Xana is using to access parts of reality.
Oh, that's the big bong that they go into at the end.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
and so they need to cleanse Xana of these their connection to this.
Right.
And I don't know if it's something that happens in every episode, but there's some time travel in the show, and maybe that's something that's common.
I have things to say about that when we get there.
Yeah, but the supercomputer itself that they work with and the kids retain their memories because they're connected to Alita. Yeah, that's it. Alita's
Alita, Battle Angel.
yeah. Alita is the good AI helping the kids, right? And I
Okay.
think Lyoko is the realm, the computer realm.
Okay.
And so Bemused Horseman, shout out. You can clarify this in any comments below if you'd like to.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Feel free to tweet at either of us or
yeah.
comment on the YouTube video or
So
whatever. If we're not understanding things properly, which
yeah,
I'm sure I'm
this is
not.
my gist.
But
I was like, I said to my partner, I was like, wouldn't it be hilarious if I actually learned what the show that was about and like made Christopher feel like only one of us thought it was bad? And I just explain it like I grew up watching it. But they need to help Alita
so is that what's gonna happen?
cleanse the towers. Yeah. Cleanse the towers. And the towers are the links, right? And when they're corrupted by Xana, they can interact with the reality, the real world. And I'll
Right.
point out how they do
the
it
giant
in the episode.
the giant bongs, right?
The towers, God damn it. Yeah. And let's see, they basically the timeline undoes any damage, and indeed, which I thought was interesting, because it redoes time, it can bring people back to life to a time before they were dead. So it's kind of like one introducing time travel that the main characters are still remember is interesting, but at the same time I find that that's a buffer. You can have bad things happening and the characters can just go code Lyoko and rewind time.
That is bad writing because it completely nullifies any stakes.
That's what I'm trying to stutter out here, is you can kind of nullify any mistake. And indeed, like
No,
straight up someone dies in this episode, and
no,
it's
no,
just like, man.
not mistakes. Like it completely eliminates all stakes. There's no
Oh,
stake.
sorry,
Yeah,
there's
there's no stakes in
what is
the
there to
in the
lose
story.
when you can
Exactly.
rewind time?
There
So
there's no real cause and effect when you can just like be like, oh, I've got I'm motherfucking Prince of Persia. I'm just gonna rewind time. Doesn't matter anymore.
yeah, and I think the nerdy kid that's like the programmer that interacts with Alita, what is it, Jeremy? I'll get into it when we watch the episode. Yeah, it's Jeremy.
I actually laughed once because he makes a kind of a dumb pun at one point
There's some
that made me chuckle.
yeah, there's some stuff.
He's like, I
Um
think he says something along the lines of like, looks like we're out of gas.
oh right, yeah, there's some gas jokes.
Yeah, when they go to examine the laughing gas tank that's now empty, he's like, "Oh, it looks like we're out of gas, so to speak."
Some oh wait, that's
It's a
exactly what he says.
it's
Yeah.
a really fucking dumb joke, but it made me chuckle.
Yeah. And so let me give you the rundown, me reading it. So basically, it's a boarding school, Caddick Academy. There's a quantum supercomputer 30 years before its time in an abandoned factory near the school. So just this small group of kids know about it. That's why they're in the school after hours, by the way. I was watching the show and I'm like, who's just letting these kids run around?
Hey, to be fair, in Reboot the Guardian Code, there is also a like supercomputer in the basement of their school.
Okay, so I'm starting to lean on the camp that Guardian Code app ripped off Code Lyoko. But what's his name?
I have a controversial opinion to dish out at the end of this on that note.
Yeah, so Lyoko's the world. There's an artificial intelligent girl named Alita trapped inside of it. Jeremy learns of Xana, a fully autonomous, malevolent, highly intelligent, multi-agent system that also dwells within the supercomputer. Using Lyoko's powers, Xana can possess electronics and objects in the real world like a virus to wreak havoc. Xana's primary objective is to eliminate anyone aware of the supercomputer's existence so that it will be free to conquer the real world and destroy all of humanity.
Ah, after 10,000 years, I'm free.
It's kind of
It's time
we
to
need some
conquer
teenagers
Earth.
with attitude. And indeed, we get them. So Jeremy's the nerd. He was looking for parts to rebuild a robot, and he reawakened Alita in the virtual world of Lyoko and Xana, all that stuff.
And yada yada yada. That's the basic gist of what this show is
And that's
about.
what we got.
Let's get into this episode. So this
Let's get
episode
into Laughing
opens.
Fit.
This episode opens with a horrible theme song.
I was like, I can't wait to ask Christopher what he thinks of the fucking theme song.
The theme song's pretty bad, and Bemused Horseman, I do apologize if you like the theme to this show, or if you have nostalgia for it, or whatever.
Yeah, but did you listen to it in French or English?
I only watched the show in English.
I watched it in both.
Yeah, you mentioned. I fucking hate autotune, is what it really comes down to.
What year was this? Sorry,
2003.
Oh man,
2003.
Autotune was all the rage, man.
No, I know, but like,
I know.
So,
I know.
My musical taste around this time, I was listening to like death metal and black metal, like primarily.
What are you listening to now?
Else.
Primarily. Okay. Never mind. I was gonna make a joke that so the same thing you listen to now. You listen to a lot of stuff now.
No, nowadays I kind of just listen to whatever I hear that I like.
It was death metal and nothing else.
It was death metal, black metal, a little bit of thrash, and some industrial. Actually, lots of industrial at this point. Some progressive
cool
stuff
back then.
Some progressive stuff, but I was ingrained completely in extreme metal at this time. So there's actually a period of about 15 or so years where I'm completely oblivious to most mainstream music, because I did a really good job of just ignoring it.
So there's like a gap in your music timeline.
There's a very large gap in my music timeline, but I do know that autotune and shit like that was very in. And indeed, this sounds like an early to mid 2000s pop song.
Mm-hmm.
But I hate it. And I'm not even saying it's, well, I did say it's bad, but I'm saying that
you hate it.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
I'm not enough of a music critic to give it any sort of intellectual analysis or exercise any degree of critical thinking. It is top to bottom, I don't like the theme song to this show. And so that already started me off with this series on kind of a bad foot. And
Code Lyoko, be there when you call. I don't know. It's kind of slaps, man.
All right. Well, the
more I've listened to it, the more like first listen to it, I was like, and I listened to it again, and I was like, okay, it's not that offensive, and it's weird. Every time I hear it, I enjoy it more and more.
I have heard it twice now, and I will never listen to it again. Never.
Stronger after all. So it starts with like a teacher laughing.
Yep. Talking about laughing gas. Talking about the effects of laughing gas. What it does to you. And she talks about like how it can eventually damage your nervous system, and so you can literally die laughing. I'm like, I didn't know that. It makes sense, but I just didn't know.
Yeah, they used to do this before like dentist stuff.
Right. I see. I never experienced this going to the dentist. I just know this because it's been a bit in movies for the past like 50
It's
years.
a bit. From what
People
I
going into a
recall, when
dentist's
my
office and
uncle,
getting high on laughing
from what I
gas.
recall, when my uncle was on it, you have like an inverse reaction, but it's not like a real laugh. It's not like you're like Joker gas, where you're like grabbing your tummy and you're like rolling around laughing. It's
Uh,
it's more like a weird respiratory
yeah, yeah. So
thing where
it's
you're a
not
little euphoric. Yeah.
it's not pleasant, I assume.
Oh no, it is. It's supposed to relax you and like dull things before surgery.
Mm. I've uh the marijuana's, you see, tends
Does
to
a much
make
better job.
well, it tends to make me laugh at things uncontrollably, but like
You're one of those.
it, but it's unpleasant. I don't like it. In fact,
Oh, interesting.
uh I actually hate being stoned on weed. That's why I don't smoke it. I
Oh,
smoked it a lot in when I was in my late teens for about a period of about 3 years
that was
there.
your laughing gas.
Yeah, but it 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 had like a bunch of weird, unusual effects on me that I would tell people about, and they're like, "That's weird. It doesn't do that. It shouldn't do that." Like like one of the things like it would do is I would always feel like I was pissing my pants, which everyone I've told that to, they're like, "That's really strange," and I'm like, "Well, I don't know what to tell you. That's like anytime I smoke weed, like that's always a thing that happens, and I laugh uncontrollably, and yeah,
When I went into like, I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it's an MRI machine. They inject that stuff into your
yeah,
bloodstream, and it feels really warm and hot.
yeah, I've had that done
And
too.
then you get put through that machine and then out. But as they're like taking the pictures, the whatever, as they're powering it on, oh, you feel like you're peeing, and then you're not.
Yeah, they
You
they
feel
they
like you're
put
peeing, and they tell you that before, and it's like you're gonna feel
yeah,
like you're peeing, you're not.
yeah.
So
That's
that's
this is different though.
oh, it wasn't, it was different.
Yeah.
Oh, you felt like you had to go?
No, no, I felt like I was, but like I've had the thing that you're talking about.
Yeah,
They inject ink into your bloodstream so it shows up
it's
on
like a
medical imaging.
potassium or really low like radioactive type of dye, right?
Yeah. Um I've had that done. The sensation is different for me. Like I actually like think that I am to the point that like I'm constantly like checking my crotch
Go that, yeah,
being
that
like
would be, that would
what
fuck me up.
being like what's going on? And I'd be like laughing uncontrollably and like I wouldn't be able to like process anything that's going on around me. I don't know. It's just it's unpleasant. I don't like it. I think I might just have a some kind of sensitivity to it because
Yeah, it affects you differently.
I tried a few years ago taking some edibles for like some chronic like body pain that I was dealing some joint
Right.
pain that I was dealing with, and the amount that I took was like the like lowest amount that the dispensary sold, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this will just give you like a you'll feel kind of mellow," and it made me so sick. Like I like to the point that I was like
Really?
messed up for like 2 days afterward, and then I ended up giving the rest of the supply that I had to my partner, and who doesn't smoke weed, doesn't really do edibles or anything like that. And I warned her about it, and she took it, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I didn't really do much. Like it, I felt kind of relaxed, but that's about it." And I'm like, "Really? It made me sick for like 2 days."
Yeah, it adverse reaction
Yeah.
somehow. Um,
Anyway,
I've
that
heard
was
that kind of, no, that's an interesting side note. Um, I've heard that whenever that happens, I can't quite remember, but it's something. You have a reaction in a certain organ, like your bladder or your like liver or something like that. And
Right.
that's why you feel like you're going pee or something like that. So yeah, like a weird like organ like allergy or like something. It doesn't affect you the same.
Yeah.
Good, probably for the best that you you avoided it.
And it's just weed too, because like I drink alcohol quite a bit. I've done a ton of hard drugs in my life and generally don't have any like long-term adverse effects from them. But yeah, weed just not for me. Body
Not for
doesn't like
me.
it.
Yeah, your body's your anti-drug. And what is this teacher? So the teacher's like, oh, but you can neutralize it with water. So she drinks some water and she's fine.
Is that how laughing gas actually works? Uh,
Wouldn't that be something?
wouldn't that be something? You just get
Okay.
rid of wouldn't it be great if like any sort of intoxicating substance, like you could just like drink
Take a sip
water
of
and be
water and
I'd be like, okay, I'm cured. Back to normal.
uh
So I got a question. I got something to say about the character designs in this show.
it dissolves in water.
Why the fuck are their
But no, they
foreheads
just
so
give you
big?
I knew you were gonna mention it, mostly because I was going to. It's an animation style of okay, so Western animation tried.
This is
I'm not a
very much
weeb,
trying to be like anime light.
but with its spin. So in the 2000s, and I've talked about this on many other shows,
Right.
um, that whole trying to imitate the Western anime revolution of the thousands of the 2000s, where they try to imitate um, anime but digitally rather than on paper. And
A notable example would be, I would say, would be Avatar: The Last Airbender.
or like Teen Titans, but that's very stylized. It's its own thing, right? It found its style. But a
Well, I would
lot
say
of the
Teen Titans is
shows.
kind of an evolution of the 1990s, like Paul Dini, Batman the Animated Series, Superman the Animated Series
Oh yeah, but I
style.
mean, you could see the influence of animation and how it ended up looking,
Mm.
right? And but it's its own thing. I wouldn't say it's its own thing. So not that it's copying anime, but that Western cartoons
I
became its own style. That's what I'm trying to say. And this is one of those where it's trying a new style. And it reminds me a lot of really big forehead 80s Japanese animation.
mm,
But with the twist, their eyes are very like diamond shaped,
right.
right?
Um,
But yeah, they've got an because it's not anime, they're big ass foreheads.
I don't like the big foreheads.
They got big
That's
ass foreheads, and
I think the animation style for the rest of the show is fine. I don't like the giant foreheads. If they had
you ever
toned
watch The
down
Head?
they toned down the giant foreheads, like the show would look a lot better, would be a lot more visually appealing to me. I say as someone who has a giant forehead.
Every
If
year,
you're
my forehead gets bigger and bigger.
That's a receding hairline, friendo.
No, my forehead's getting bigger. And yeah, so they're trying to find their own style with it, and you get used to it quickly. But when
I
80%
did
of
not.
80% of their head real estate is their forehead, a lot of forehead. So if
Almost
this
a
is your
fucking
first,
eight head at that point.
yeah, they're very eight heads. Jesus Christ. So they got very pointy eyebrows, very angular faces. The line art is clean. The single shading, that's what I mean by 2000s like animation, like very simple, and you grab people with silhouettes, right? And it's important to make a show unique looking so that people recall it better. And so I think they were trying something
Well, and
new.
indeed, this show lasted 97 episodes over 4 years. So
Yeah, that's amazing. I was like, how many seasons this got? Like 1, 2, 9, almost 100 episodes. So what happens here when they exit the science class that they're in? 3 boys are hanging out. These are 3 of the 4 members of the main cast, right? And there's a they're really trying to hold on to the 90s here because there's a lot of teenage midriff going on in these episodes. And there's a goth chick hanging Yumi hanging over the edge of a bench.
The only character whose name I remember.
Yeah. And one of the characters, Ulrich, he's like, I'm going to go talk to her.
Okay.
And
there's a thing that happens right here that pisses me off. I think you know exactly.
The other kids, the other 2, Jeremy and Odd. Yeah, I think that's his name. He says, hey, she doesn't want to be talked to right now. And he's like, oh, well, I'm going to go talk to her anyway. So the other 2 are like, huh, okay. And before he even opens his mouth, Yumi says to Ulrich, please, Ulrich, leave me alone. I don't really feel like talking.
And he's like, well, I feel like talking to you.
And in the smarmiest fucking smug ass, like, I'm the coolest kid in school voice, like kind of like this guy's gonna rape someone in college kind of deal. He's like, but I feel like talking, and I feel like talking with you.
That's that's some shitty shit right there.
Kids, no.
Sorry. No,
kids.
That's not how interpersonal exchanges work.
We find out later that these 2 are very close, and
Still.
he's trying to be funny, but no. Like if a girl says can you leave them alone on the bus? No, that's not how you get the goth chick in your high school. I'm sorry, kids. And she turns around because she's kind of like surprised that he reacted like that, and she's like, well, if you like talking so much, go talk to yourself. And she storms off, and Ulrich kind of he's not fazed by this. Again, we're going into this a few episodes in, right? 15 episodes in, but there's this thing that's in TV shows that's unrealistic. Okay. There's this slutty girl named Sissy, and I'm just rolling with that because I was watching it and my partner was like, who's this slut? But she's obviously all over Ulrich. He can do no wrong. And by the way, he treats her like shit. Yeah, and she still throws herself on him.
Yeah, and like, so I haven't, like, we haven't watched the previous 14 episodes.
Yeah.
But I'm like, why is he such a dick to her?
When she's just like she clearly likes him. He's not a dick to anyone else. If he was a dick to everyone, I get it. But he's just a dick to this chick.
So like, are we missing something? Like, yeah, she's kind of, we see later on in the episode, she's kind of bossy, she's kind of annoying, but it's like, dude, like she's just trying to talk. She's just trying to talk to you. Like
at this, but she always takes digs. Now, at the same time, if we reversed the genders and there was a dude thirsty after a girl and she was bitchy to him, we would say that's justified. So you know what? If she's like this to him all the time, I get it.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Like I need to stop and like analyze, and I'm like, if the genders were switched here, whose side would we be on? And if it was a thirsty dude always hitting on a chick, we wouldn't be on his side.
Well,
I'm checking myself.
Well,
right
see,
there.
no, I don't know though, because like I don't really see. I don't know. It's like, to me, she just seems like she just seems like she's trying to be friendly to me.
Fair enough, right? We don't know like all the other episodes, like Welcome to Lasercomb, but we don't know the sips yet, but there's an exchange here, and it makes me hate Ulrich even more than but I want to talk to you. Sissy says, "Don't worry, Ulrich. Not all girls are like Yumi." And he turns around and scowls at her as she's like making like no noises and like posing for him. And he
Annoying
replies,
anime girl voices.
yeah. And,
I hate that
and
shit.
she's like, she's like, don't worry, not all girls are like Yumi. And he stares at her and he's like, yeah, too bad. Or like, that's a shame or something. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh shit.
yeah.
If it was up to me, all of the girls in this school would be brooding goths
I
with
mean,
parental trouble.
I mean, on a superficial level, like sure, I can vibe with that.
Fair. And she runs after him, even though he was rude. And she's like, hey, Ulrich, you coming to the rehearsal tomorrow? So some sort of drama club or something, I assume. And he's like, yeah, I'm going, but I'm not going because you're there. I'm only going because my buddy's going. And his buddy's odd.
Jesus.
He's got like the weird spiky hair and he talks really fast. Um, the blonde one with like a blue streak in his hair or something.
Right. I have it freeze framed right now on I think it's 3 minutes and 4 seconds, and like the blonde kid is making like this really like creepy like face looking at I think it's Ulrich.
3 minutes.
I'm watching this on iTunes, so
Oh, you're watching it on a different thing. Okay, one sec. So
no problem.
after he said he shit talks Sissy, who tries to get him to play Romeo, the transition scene happens. This was jarring for me, okay, because it's in 3D
Yeah.
and he's a samurai. And there's an orange icon and he's waving around a samurai sword. And it goes beep, 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 like that little auto tune like snippet of the soundtrack.
Right.
And I was
Yeah,
like,
so
whoa, I didn't because going into this, I really realize until we had started it and I had looked it up that there's a 3D component to it.
yeah.
And I was like,
Um
who the fuck was that?
yeah, these are their presumably their uh Matrix world
They're
representations of themselves.
they're Lyoko um avatars. They're Leo avatars. They're personas, if you will. So we cut
There we go.
into yeah. So right around right after the transition, we cut to the science lab and it shows an outlet, a very European looking outlet.
Hmm.
Um, and can you tell this is a French show? And it sparks and black smoke comes out. And the black smoke goes through the classroom and wraps around the laughing gas canisters,
Yep.
goes inside and comes back out. So merging with the laughing gas, right? And
Yeah.
it makes a spooky face and then it flies away. That's Xana entering like the real world to cause shenanigans there.
I was so confused.
I
I'm like
so
I'm
was I,
like
my friend.
I'm like, what? What is
That's
happening?
Xana interacting with the real world and fucking shit up. Yeah. The first time I was like, what's happening? Everything's going so fast. I don't know what's happening, but I got it. I gave it a chance and I got it. So the romantic motherfucker Ulrich goes to ring a doorbell. What's their last name here?
I don't know.
Ishiyama. So Yumi is half Japanese or something like that.
Or full Japanese. I don't know.
Or full Japanese. We don't know.
Yeah.
And Ulrich finds out that Yumi's parents are arguing and taking a break or something. And the romantic motherfucker brings her a rose,
A single rose.
a pink rose.
what a sweet future
What a
date
sweet child
rapist he
who takes.
is.
It's okay if you bring a rose.
Maybe the
And
rose has some laughing gas in it.
oh God.
It's some Joker. It's some Joker shit. Like put a flower up to someone's face and then they just like it knocks them out.
Yeah. And he's all like, yeah, cool story. So you want to make out? Oh, yeah, yeah, parents suck. And she's like, you know just what to say, Ulrich. And I'm like, does he? He was kind of a dick earlier. There was a phase in the
Does he?
2000s. There was he does nothing this episode that redeems him, by the way.
Oh,
I'm sure he's a cool dude, but he doesn't do anything. It's all the other characters that like save the day. As far as I can tell, this guy doesn't do. We'll get into it. Yeah, and Yumi's like, I'm really glad that you came. You always know just what to say. So these two are dating because they touch hands, but she seems
best friends.
surprised.
He's
Well, he
like
touches
the
her hand and she's kind of gasps a little, and he like gives her like the rape face. And
yeah,
you see him?
he does. I know exactly what shot you're talking about.
Tell me I'm wrong. Holy shit! Ulrich has the creepiest looks. Anyone listening, if somebody looks at you like Ulrich, you'd leave.
Yeah, just get out. Make an excuse and get out of there.
There's Joker gas in that rose.
In that rose. Maybe I'll make that the artwork for this episode.
You always know just what to say.
With a big like
So,
maniacal grin.
it's his eyebrows. They're always like when you have pointed down eyebrows with like a big shit-eating grin. That's not a good guy look.
Right? No. No, it definitely isn't.
No.
So we cut
3D.
over.
We get a 3D shot.
Oh, do we?
Yeah, of in the school. We cut to Jeremy and Alita.
Oh, I thought this is where we went to the Romeo and Juliet practice.
Oh, after the rose scene, it cuts to very briefly. Jeremy's talking to Alita.
Oh, yep. You're right.
And he's like, Alita,
I was worried I had a different cut of the episode for a second there.
the director's cut.
The director's cut.
Director.
So that listeners, that is a reference to a very old episode of Too Much Energon, like episode 12, I think. Episode 12 of Too Much Energon.
Dark Designs?
Or 13, yeah. It was Dark Designs, yeah.
Covered Dark Designs, yeah.
Yeah. So if you're curious, if you're curious, go check that out.
And Jeremy, I think Jeremy thinks Alita's his girlfriend. Maybe she is. Rick, I can't tell. And Alita's like,
so maybe he like this is like a or sorry, like this what I wanted to mention with Lars Ulrich and Yumi is maybe like Lars Ulrich is being that like quote unquote male best friend that like so many female friends of mine over the years have had, who will like gush about being their best friends.
But then the guy seems in utter turmoil.
But then like eventually like the guy will make a like unwanted move on her and will turn very shitty very quickly. This is a thing that I saw like a lot, especially in the 2000s with female friends of mine. They always had like a male like quote unquote best friend who was always talking about like how he would always be like, oh, we're such best friends.
Even into college and adulthood, like that shit happens and people unfriend each other because of that.
Yeah. And then eventually like it comes out that this is just like him trying to like weasel his way into her panties.
It's a lot of people being clueless about signs and a lot of people leading people on. Not that that's warranted for anything, but like if your male best friend gives you gifts and they're unreciprocated gifts, like they just give you things, don't accept them, right? Don't let them hold your hand. Don't snuggle and watch like Netflix.
Yeah,
Do you like make boundaries of what a friend is?
I would
And
say 95% of the time that motherfucker has an ulterior motive.
let's be real. Yeah, nobody's buying you get. Oh man, I saw that so much now that you mention it.
No,
Oh,
nobody's like cuddling up to you on the couch and like eating like fucking chocolates and watching like Love Actually with you for like the 50th time just because they're
because
your
they're your
quote
best
unquote
friend.
best friend.
I man, and don't accept
Shit, we
their
might
don't
we
expect their
we
don't
might get
accept their
canceled
jewelry.
for this.
Don't
Right?
accept their jewelry. Like if your male best friend is buying you jewelry, that's a big this
Big red
isn't
flag.
a don't give them don't lead them on like you're doing anything wrong. This is how to deal with uh
Yeah. Yeah.
people stuck in the friend zone,
Yeah.
the patient predators, if you will.
The patient predators. Yep.
um like if they're buying you jewelry like that, no, don't. And oh man, I in high school, like
Yep. Uh-huh.
oh man, no, I can think of, okay, not that they'll ever listen to this. Let's say there was one guy, and let's call him Bark, and he really liked this one chick.
Bark laser.
Let's say her name was Lorgan, and Bark and Lorgan grew up, and Bark really liked Lorgan, right? Would buy
Deceptive
her fucking
aliases these
gifts,
are.
would buy her gifts, like expensive fucking jewelry, right? Even when he started dating someone else.
Oh, that's
And she had
suspect.
to always wonder, it's just like, well, Lorgan always put always like turned him down or whatever, and he's still okay with that. But like
Gorgon.
the girl would wear the jewelry he got him like at school, and she'd have to, like, Bark's girlfriend would have to see that.
Mm.
And she always knew in the back of her head that if like Lorgan ever was like, oh hey, are you interested, he would drop her like in half a second.
Um,
Absolutely. And
I've been in relationships like that before, and that sucks. It sucks to be in that position where you know, like deep down in the back of your mind, like you'll get dropped like a bag of hammers just in a
and
split
the
second.
first choice changes their mind.
Yeah, it's happened to me as a matter of fact.
And oh, man, this has nothing to do with Code Lyoko. It's just when Christopher brought up the whole like the patient predator. I like that term. The
That's a good
Ulrich
one.
being
Yeah.
the best friend, right? Don't hold your best friend's hand. Don't accept roses from them. Like it's hard to
It's
because
gonna have Joker gas in
it's
it.
gonna have Joker gas in it. We're looking out for you, right? It's not that you're like leading him on. We're trying to I used that term, but that's the wrong term. Boundaries. But the thing is, and I'll move on after this, girls are taught to kind of not say no and be nice to everyone. They're not taught that it's okay to make boundaries with people
Um,
like men are. It's
I,
different. It's
I,
changing now.
I was gonna say I think it's different nowadays, but like even when we were growing up, it was it was definitely still that way.
So I understand that. Like it's hard to say no to gifts. It's hard to say yeah, and it's different now. The winds of change are happening. But your best friend can turn like what, like Christopher said, pretty ugly fast. The Joker gas kicks in and
Hmm.
it's not good. So stay away from the Ulrichs out there. Maybe he's a great guy and we're just catching the rapey episode, but I'm
Stay
not
stay
digging.
stay away from Lars Ulrich. Stay away from every other member of Metallica. Like just don't do it. It's not a good scene.
That's the best advice we can give you. Stay away from every member of Metallica. So
No
what
matter
if
how
like
many
we're
millions they have.
no matter how many tens of thousands of dollars they have left. You heard me. No, they still make stupid fucking money.
They do.
Jeremy is like, oh, Alita's like, hey, how come like people argue? That's not very nice. And Jeremy's, Alita, very often people who get along well still have fights. And Alita's like, but you and I don't fight, Jeremy. How come we don't fight? And he's all like, I don't know. Maybe we're the perfect couple or something. And I'm like, oh
Well,
no.
well, that's because you're my AI girlfriend, and I programmed you to not disagree with me at any time because I wanted you to be the perfect woman.
Remember,
Uh,
she's an artificial intelligence that existed before this guy found her. So it cuts to the screen and it's very 90s Windows style, but there's like a Yu-Gi-Oh card that represents her stats. And I'm like,
yeah,
hold up, what is that?
yeah. I don't
Right?
know. Yeah, I also don't care either. Let's keep
I
going.
don't care. Let's move on. Okay.
So
Yeah, so sorry, Romeo,
Sh- so
Romeo, who art
Shakespeare in
thou,
the
Romeo?
park.
Shakespeare in the Park, all the kids suck. One of
So
them's playing
so
guitar.
okay, so Sissy, that's her name, right? Sissy,
Yep.
the guy that Lars Ulrich was or the chick that Lars Ulrich was an absolute twat to earlier. Um,
I end up liking her more than other characters so
agreed.
far.
Uh, I also like Yumi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Nobody else.
pretty much no. I guess the AI chick is all right,
But we
but
don't know enough
we don't know enough
about
about
her.
her.
But basically, Sissy is kind of like a perfectionist, wants to order everything. It comes across as like bossy, but like I was like that in drama. And I'm like, guys, if you're gonna spend the time here,
Okay,
can you do
so
it? Okay, here we go.
what I will say, when you're doing a production, I don't care if it's on stage or if it's fucking podcasting, sometimes you need to wrangle people in and be like,
Wrangle.
okay, we have some fucking shit to do. Let's just do it. Like
Yeah.
you're messing this up. Or like this is not going the way that it should, or yada yada yada. You need to take control sometimes.
Thank you. Thank you. That's why I jive with Sissy here. And I'm like, wrangle these kids in, please.
Yeah.
Like
So
if they're taking part in this, like, okay, come on.
okay, so, yeah, so some doofus is like reading Romeo's lines like really poorly. Or they say that he's reading them poorly. Although I'm gonna say and Sissy even like complains about his delivery being like really awkward and whatnot. I'm gonna say it right now. His delivery of this dialogue isn't much worse than the actual voice acting in this show.
So how can you tell?
So how can you tell? The voice acting in the show is not very good. It's and maybe that just comes from it being a show that was originally written that has dialogue that was originally written to be recorded in French. I don't know, but yeah, the voice acting in the show it's not it's
The
not
French voice is good. I'm watching it in French.
well, I don't speak French, so um
I got the subtitles on in French and I've got the language set on in French. I absolutely cannot communicate at all. And French and Spanish is way too fast for me. But if you slow it down and like I'm pausing and I'm reading the French subtitles, I'm like, oh, okay.
I'm Canadian and have worked in grocery stores for like the past decade, so I know what is commonly referred to as retail French.
Retail, flake on demain, my friend, flake on demain.
So I can read French on the French side of packaging of things and usually understand what it means.
Anyone listening that's not from Canada, Literally everything in the country has English and French on it.
Yeah, it's law
Even if it takes up
bilingual.
extra like space, sometimes the reverse side will be English and the other side will be French. Everything.
Yeah.
If it's food and there's writing on it, it's in English and French.
Mm-hmm.
Never met anybody from BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan that speaks French, but here we are.
Yeah, the only people I've ever known who actually speak French are all from Ontario and Quebec.
East, yeah, the eastern provinces.
Yeah.
Actually, even like PEI, Newfies, Brunswick, they don't speak French either.
It's
Yeah.
just
So
Ontario and Quebec. All right, so what the fuck's happening in this episode?
okay, so she's like, "Hey,
we're
hey,
only like 5 minutes into this
kid,
shit.
kid, play slower." And he's all like, "If I play any slower, I'll put myself to sleep." And he's like, "Okay, keep your bad jokes to yourself, huh?"
Yeah, and then the fart gas shows up and makes
Oh,
Sammy
right, the
start
evil
laughing.
fart gas, yeah, from Fern Gully shows up, and it just infects Odd, who falls in the ground and starts laughing. And fortunate for him, Sissy likes to pour water on people, being the queen bitch that she is.
What a weird
And
character trait. That
and she comes over and yeah, she's just like get a hold of yourself, and like pours a bottle of water on him. And this causes the Xana gas to exit his body.
the Xana gas. The Xana gas.
I like when she's walking over to him, by the way, she's got like platform like shoes. Like this is very like 2000s. Somebody's like, "Get him, sissy." And I was like, I don't think she likes any of you. who's cheering her on? Yeah, and so the spooky gas goes into the vent and fucks off. And we cut to Yumi visiting the friend that her dad is staying with.
And she very awkwardly like knocks at the door and she says something like, "I would like to see my father, please."
Yep. And then the adult, the dad's friend, says something even more fucking awkward. And I'm like, it's none of your business, cunt. He says, "Oh, yeah, of course you can see your dad. One sec. Oh, would you know why your mother and father aren't talking to each other?" And she just like shakes her head. Dude, don't get in between. Ask your buddy, ask her dad. Don't fucking ask the kid. What a douchey thing.
I have more to say about the conflict between Yumi's parents later on in the episode when we get there and how
Oh,
that
that's
shit is
such a
resolved.
trope. That's so I was gonna say the show's kind of weird and realistic in that like the parents are on a break kind of thing and the dad's staying with someone else and the girl doesn't know what to do. And it's wrapped up in such a hallmark way at the end that I kind of
It feels very sitcom-y.
yeah.
Yeah.
What? You sent me a letter telling me to meet you here. No, you sent me a letter. Oh, me, you mean Yumi tricked us both? Let's get back together. It's basically
It's very sitcom. That's some like 80s and 90s sitcom bullshit right there. Um
that happens.
uh yeah, that happens on television. That shit does not happen in real life. If people do not if a couple who are fighting, or not even a couple, but people who are in conflict with one another, don't want to see each other, and you force them into a very contrived situation where they have to,
Now you're in shit.
it's not going to go well, and
Yeah.
you're kind of being an asshole for
What a
forcing them to do to to see each other when that's not what they want or need right now.
tropes have given millennials really bad expectations of reality. Like, please don't do that.
Yeah, don't do it.
Anyways, we cut to Jeremy and Odd talking to Alita, and he's filling him in on the evil gas.
Yeah.
And so he's like, "All right, let's go into the science lab and inspect the laughing gas."
Yeah, and this is where he makes they find out that the canisters are empty, and this is where he makes the comment that it made me chuckle, where he's like, "Oh, it looks like
Yeah, they
we're out of
break in.
gas. We ran out of gas."
I guess Jeremy has some Skyrim skills and like lock picking because he lock picks the fucking science lab
Maybe he has the Daedric artifact, the
skeleton key,
skeleton key. Yeah, where you could just keep mashing the X button
the
until
auto.
it, yeah, until it finally just unlocks because it won't break.
It's like, oh, I don't want to use that. It's kind of like cheap, blah blah blah. But then like after your like fourth playthrough of Oblivion, you're like, you can't get the skeleton key fast enough.
Uh, yeah, no, in Oblivion, I'm like skeleton key, enchant every piece of my clothing with chameleon, so I'm invisible, and get the sword that soul traps upon
Oh, you
death.
anything that can soul trap. Yeah, that's the way to.
There's
Chameleon's
a
an interesting one.
there's a Daedric sword. I can't remember what it's called, but there's a Daedric sword that will automatically soul trap when you whenever you kill an enemy. So
That's a staple.
just run around and murder people and fill like grand soul gems.
Yeah, black soul gems.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the I
Oh,
would
there's also the
like
Black Star, which is another Daedric artifact, which is a refillable black soul gem.
the black star is
This is now
in
a Elder Scrolls
Skyrim. This
podcast,
is now an
folks.
Elder Scrolls podcast. The black star is the corrupted Azura's star in Skyrim.
Yeah. It's also
And
in Oblivion as well.
it isn't it just Azura's star, or can you corrupt it in Oblivion as well?
It's also in Oblivion. They're separate items in Oblivion.
Oh, I didn't realize. It's been a
Yeah.
while since I played Oblivion. Okay, so the black star is different than Azura's star.
Yeah.
Intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you ever just grab Azura's star in Skyrim? Of course you're going to corrupt that shit. What, you're going to piss off Azura? You're the fucking Dragonborn, man. Anyways, so fucking Jeremy's playing Morrowind on his Windows 98. Modding
Oh,
Morrowind.
oh shit! It would be Daggerfall at that point.
Oh, right. Morrowind was 2003.
Oh, 2003. Yeah. So okay, so he could have conceivably been playing Morrowind here. It was
Yeah.
out. It was new.
He's got a new gaming PC, man. It's a quantum computer. You can play the shit out of Morrowind.
He's got a Pentium 4, like 750 megahertz CPU with 64 gigs of RAM, bro.
Holy shit. Back up. Overclocking that shit.
We got a badass over here, and his
so
GeForce 2
and
video card.
DirectX 4. And so he after he installs a flash update, the new DirectX update, we jump into the digital world of Lyoko.
Yep.
Holy shit, is it boring looking, my dude?
So the digital world of Lyoko, the Matrix, if you will, by way of Land of the Lost or Turok Dinosaur Hunter, it's CGI. It's pretty bad CGI. And it's
fine.
not
It's fine CGI.
it's not very good. And it's not that it's just dated, because we talk about a lot of shows on our various podcasts
Beast
with old
Wars.
CGI. Beast Wars, Reboot. Shadow Raiders. This is cheap CGI, even for 2003.
It's shocking to think that
Shadow Raiders, like
it's shocking to
show
think
that
this
ran
came out
from 98
years later than Reboot.
Shadow Raiders, a show that we have a podcast about called War Planets, which we're just about to finish up soon. That shit ran from 1998 to 1999. The CGI in that show is significantly better than this.
Maybe it gets better in better seasons.
Maybe.
In newer.
This is the first
season,
season, and like I said, it's not that the CGI in this show is dated per se. It's cheap. It's cheap. It's cheap looking. It was made on a budget.
using fucking what epic the Unreal assets, free distribution assets from the Unreal Engine. It's really boring looking, man. When you said Turok, like Fog World, I'm like, it's a bunch of floating islands made of stone with stone bridges in between them, and like dead, very sparse dead vegetation with lots of fog in between, and some SpongeBob looking monsters.
Those monsters look like sculptures in the Dietz's house in Beetlejuice.
That's man, yeah.
That was
Her
the
mom.
first.
What's Lydia's mom's name?
Uh,
Lydia's mom.
yeah, yeah.
Her weird fucking sculptures.
L-
Yeah, I'm with you.
Lorena or something like that. Lorena
Something like
Dietz.
that. Yeah, you know what? Good. That's great.
That was the first thing that popped into my head. I'm like, those look like the fucking sculptures in Beetlejuice.
That's great observation. That makes me like them a little more.
Especially with
so
like the
perplexed.
legs and
Yeah, the very spindly looking legs.
yeah.
And she's, what is Alita? Alita's an elf. She's got short pink hair. She's dressed in kind of like ancient, like Chinese, like tunic or something.
Mm.
And she jumps off one of the floating islands, presumably to her death, and then superhero lands on another island. And she says, "Thank heavens, a tower just in time," or as Christopher likes to say, the giant bong.
Yep. So there's a
I
giant
can't
bong.
unsee it. Yeah.
I think it's actually supposed to resemble a candle, to be honest. But
Oh, okay. I can see that.
yeah, but I'm just gonna run with the fact that it's a giant bong.
So she runs into it and
Takes a
like
big
teleports. She teleports, right? I don't know where she goes, but she runs into it. And all of a sudden we cut to Jeremy like prepping a chamber for Odd, who goes into like a secret super tech basement to jack into Lyoko.
Mm-hmm.
But while he's doing that, the spooky fog, a little bit of it goes into the pod with him. And I'm like, oh shit, do we got the fly situation here?
So he turns, he ends up mutating into like a mist form type
and
creature.
His teeth fall out, and
yeah, that'd actually be pretty badass.
But before
I'd like this show more.
Jeremy's kind of like the operator, like Tank from the Matrix. Like he's all right, like, oh, you need to go like, northwest to blah blah. He's there to guide them and stuff. And he says virtualization, and he taps a button, and Odd enters the game just as Evil Fog comes to get Jeremy.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, data transfer problem. So the computer lets them know something fucky happened there. And the Monkey King spawns into Lyoko. So Odd has monkey paws and a tail. Bird paws? He's got creature gloves or paws.
These are their fucking fursonas.
Right? Thank you.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so his fursona is like a Monkey King with like bird hands or something. I don't mind his look. Whatever. And he's like, oh, I feel really weak. Did something weird happen? Jeremy? Where are you, Jeremy? Operator? And we cut to Alita. She's in a tower in like an Iron Man like sequence with a bunch of screens floating in front of her, and she's pressing them. And she's trying to communicate to Jeremy.
At this point, I would say it's more of a Minority Report type
thing.
Oh,
much better. There you go. Yeah, Minority Report. And she's trying to talk to Jeremy. So is Odd. And Alita's in the tower. Odd's not. And they can't communicate to Jeremy. And part of me, now that I'm talking about it with you, is kind of like, wait, if they can't get out without Jeremy, that's kind of scary. Because in the Matrix, you can't leave unless an operator makes a phone call to you and you do that thing.
I was kind of wondering about that. I'm like, why can't you just like fucking
Like double tap your icon and wake up. Yeah.
yeah, why can't you just like to go a little even more obscure, why can't you just like Raziel from like Soul Reaver just abandon your body and shift back into the spectral realm?
Wow.
Listeners,
He's a
Legacy
big
of Kain
fan.
Soul Reaver. Huge Legacy of Kain fan.
But you're right. It's kind of like a Ready Player One sitch where like, or Matrix situation where it's like, oh shit, is he stuck in there?
Yeah. So I was kind of wondering about that, and I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Uh,
I just thought about it.
these are
So
some
that can be
actual
scary.
stakes
Yeah.
that
And as
that
far
get
as
undone later on.
yeah, I was gonna say, hey, there are real stakes here. And then I'm like, oh wait. Yeah, so there's some boring scene at the drama stage where
They convince Yumi to be part of the production. Oh, and this is another thing. They convince Yumi to be part of the production. She doesn't want to, but they convince her to anyway, and they make her put on this like kind of dorky like it's supposed to be like a soldier, but
conquistadorish looking
it
like
also kind of looks
Spanish.
like court jester-y. I don't know. Anyway, so and like she goes up on stage and this entire crowd of like grown fucking adults just start laughing at her.
Oh, later when the show happens.
Yeah, and I'm like,
And they think it's really funny. And I'm like, I don't get it. Because I don't get French humor.
but like you have this teenage girl who goes up on stage. She's wearing a costume. This is a like
It looks
staged
like
like
an
production.
Italian or a Spanish like Renaissance era palace guard.
She's supposed to be a guard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she goes on stage and like this entire crowd of parents, like grown adults, just start laughing at her. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you
And she
people?
turns and she
And this
walks
is
away.
before they even get like this is before the fucking like laughing fart gas shows up. So these
Haha,
parents are just being
girls dressed as a soldier. I don't, it's French humor, I
yeah,
guess. I don't.
these are just like adults like being complete like assholes. I don't know. It bothered me.
Yeah, it was weird. Anyways, it's revealed that she's only taking this bit part in Romeo and Juliet so that, and she told each of her parents, oh, dad's not coming, mom, why don't you come? Hey dad, mom's not coming, can you come and see me in the play? But because Ulrich pulled some strings and like got Sissy to let Yumi in the play, she forced Ulrich to play Romeo,
Hmm.
despite never looking at the script. So on one hand, she's a hard ass who wants this to go perfect, but on the other hand, she's
Real
more obsessed with Ulrich than she is with her real life. She's gotta break out of that.
So, I we've complained about him, and I don't like Lars Ulrich in this episode at all. But I will say, I kind of admire the fuck all y'all that he just goes up on stage without knowing his lines. I kind
That
of
that's pretty
admire,
good.
I kind of admire that gumption. He's just like, whatever.
How hard could it be? Right? Yeah. Juliet, oh Juliet, like I don't know, are you there? And the
This
audience
isn't
laughs
even
at
Shakespeare in dialogue.
no. Um, we cut to Jeremy running from the gas, seemingly, in a huge underground complex with pipes, steampunk pipes, and like valves and everywhere. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, where is he? It doesn't explain where he is. He's just in this giant facility, like doing parkour over pipes and running away from the mist. And it's got really dorky ass like anime like noises as he's running. Ah! So yes, run away
Yeah.
from where other humans are, deeper into the recesses of the school where your body will never be found. Um, little hint of things to come. So back in Lyoko, we get
Was
Odd's
very tempted to
persona.
make a joke there about something, a relatively current event, but I'm like, no, I'm not gonna go there.
We're good. So Odd has a weird little dog. Oh, it briefly showed that they have a dog for like 5 seconds. He was sleeping.
Oh,
And the little
okay.
dog picture cartoon is like on Odd's outfit, which I kind of thought was cute. And then, oh God, I'm looking at his sleeves. His sleeves are kitty cats. Dude, look at this.
Whereabouts?
So the gloves where his claws are, where his human flesh meets, and like
No, whereabouts in the episode?
I am like 12, 15-ish when he's running, Odd is running towards one of the towers, the Xana towers.
Oh God, I've gone way beyond where you are.
That's fine. I just wanted to point out his clothing.
Oh
That's
yeah,
all.
yeah. So, oh yeah, yeah. He's got the dog on his shirt
And
and
the kitty arm glovelet, the sleeves.
yeah.
Kind
I
of, it's
I
brave. It's brave.
it's brave, especially for 2003.
That's all I'll say.
I don't like the design of this character. And man, the
Right?
fucking giant foreheads look even worse in CGI.
Oh, in the 3D world, it seems like their heads are bigger. So let me jump ahead a bit. Jeremy jumps into the sewers to avoid the fog because it can't get him when he's underwater, and he tries to swim away.
Yeah.
Yep. What's his name? Anime fights the Dietz family sculptures. One of them blows up. The play happens, and like you said, Ulrich, like he has no ego, man, no pride. He doesn't give a shit. He's like badly reading lines that are like fucking taped to the stage, like quite clearly.
Right.
Yeah, this guy doesn't care. And like you said, when they all laugh at Yumi, I don't get it.
Yeah, it's just
I bet Sissy loved that.
I'm sure she did, but I don't know. I'm like an entire room full of grown adults just
Laughing at a child who's embarrassed
who's embarrassed just because they're wearing a costume. Like
because they're wearing what is it? Because it's men's clothing? I don't understand what's funny there.
I don't get it either. We have Blondie in
Horseman
in the Matrix wearing like fucking like cat arm like
his fursona,
arm
his kitty
warmers.
sleeves.
His kitty sleeves, like, and we're laughing because a teenage girl is dressed as a soldier. Like,
I thought she looked dope. Whatever.
yeah, whatever.
Anyways,
To rewind a little bit, I forgot to mention, I thought it was kind of funny. We talked about how the big manipulation was
right.
bringing Yumi's parents to the production by saying like, oh, like how do you convince them to get there? Oh, I told them the other one wasn't going to be here. And we talked about how that was a sitcom trope. But what I find really funny is that the mom shows up and the guy like at the door is
the
like
principal or something. Yeah.
He's like, oh, Mrs. Yumi's mom, hi, where's your husband? She's like, oh, he's not coming, he's really ill. Oh, sorry to hear that. So she goes and sit down, and immediately fucking afterward
That was pretty
husband
funny.
shows up like within seconds. Shows up
and he's like, oh, Mr. Yumashima or whatever, or I can't quite remember. Oh, Mr. Yumi's dad, I see you're feeling better.
What?
What?
And
he's like, your wife's already here. And he's like, oh, thanks.
Instead of being chill, what he does is he goes and sits down right beside her.
No chill.
No chill at all. It's like, no, dude, like you sit somewhere else and then maybe during an intermission try and go and talk to her. And if she's not feeling it, just be like, okay, well, all right, I'm gonna go back over here now.
Yeah, while that's happening, Odd, Kitty Boy, is kind of aware that he's feeling more and more weak and that he doesn't have full access to his powers, but he's with Alita now, and there are tremors. I think these tremors are important. When tremors happen in the Lyoko world, they call them pulsations.
Okay.
It means that Xana like took over or activated a tower somewhere. So that's their version of like a game, or like ripples in time, the T-Rex making ripples and whatever. That's when they see the pulsations and the world shakes, they have to stop Xana, I guess. Maybe
All
I'm
right.
overthinking it. Anyways, they fight
Maybe.
some, they go through a labyrinth, and they're like, not a labyrinth, just what we need. And I'm like, are these common?
Yeah,
But
that's what I was that's something I was wondering about too. I'm like, is this a regular problem?
and so he's going through the labyrinth, but just minutes earlier, it showed
Oh,
him crawling.
labyrinths. My only weakness.
Dance, magic, dance. No, David
No,
Bowie,
no.
please
Yeah, I was gonna say not David Bowie.
give me back my brother. Ah, big fan of Labyrinth, by the way,
I've
and
actually
David
never
Bowie in
I've actually
general.
never seen it.
You would be pleasantly surprised, I think. You know what? I'm gonna make that the movie commentary of the month one day. So we had just seen him crawling with his like claws. I guess he can go upside down with them, but now there's a labyrinth with like 10 feet tall walls, and he can't climb them.
Mm.
Thought that was weird. Anyways, Jeremy is fighting. He's swimming, and he talks to himself, and he's like, okay, Jeremy, how do you want to die? Freezing or laughing? And I'm like, that is really deep for a 15-year-old or 12-year-old or however old they are, to an interesting joke for him to make. I'm like, that's like, and like, spoilers for 5 minutes from now, he dies. But I mean, there's no repercussions because they have time magic. But he fucking dies. And he's like, okay, I'll figure something out. And he holds his breath, and like an Olympian swimmer, goes underwater and tricks the fog by swimming like 200 feet in one direction. And I'm
Yep.
like, if you're not used to swimming, man, I don't know if you can make it 20 feet. It's the
Well, I
panic.
I can't swim, so I can't weigh in on this.
You probably wouldn't have jumped in the water and you'd be fine. And this is what I don't get. Why doesn't he just splash water on himself? Because everyone else woke up and stopped laughing when they had water poured on them.
Mm.
And he's soaking wet. So how can it affect him? But maybe he doesn't know that.
Yeah,
The
so
fog attacks everyone on stage now. I can be in two places at once now. It's getting stronger. And I think that was represented by Xana taking over another tower. Maybe? Unclear?
Sure, we'll go with that.
So Sissy's freaking out, and she thinks that everyone on stage and the audience is laughing at her because I guess she put a lot of effort into the play. And the adults are just laughing at the kids, but the kids are dying. Right? Like or am I wrong? Were the adults affected? No, it's just the kids on stage, right?
I think the adults get affected after this.
Okay.
I don't know. The kids are dying of laughter, and I don't know. Back inside Turok Dinosaur Hunter, the AI girl like gets into the tower, gets into the giant bong.
And let's not forget Odd has psychic visions when he's in Lyoko.
Oh,
Y'all remember that?
no.
He gets a psychic vision, and Alita's like, what's wrong? And he's like, oh, nothing.
Oh, he
It's just a
literally
psychic
says,
vision.
"I'm having a psychic vision."
Yeah.
Right.
And he's like, go left, and like helps her. So he can astral project. I guess.
I sure.
And she makes it to the tower. Just in time, seemingly.
Yeah, she gets out her lighter and takes like a big
She
giant bong
logs
hit.
she logs in the tower, and her username is Alita, and the code she enters is Lyoko, and all the data falls away. And then we hear kind of like that VHS, like that rewind sound effect, like, and we hear Jeremy yell, "Return to the past now!" But he's dead in the deep recesses of the basement, actually dead.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how is that the audio that plays. It's just Jeremy's voice saying return to the past.
So they turn back time and
They roll
everything's
back the
fine.
rock, turn back the clock, if you will.
Don't stop the rock.
Roll back the rock to the dawn of time. It's from We're Back, a dinosaur story tale or whatever.
So they roll back time and then everything is fine. But here's the issue that I have with this: it only seems to undo the bad stuff
Okay,
because
so it rolls back time to before Xana.
because like everything other than the bad stuff happening seems to like still have occurred, like all the stuff at the play and whatnot.
I didn't think so. I think just the kids, because they're connected to Lyoko, right? They're the teenagers with attitude. They remember what happened, but everything else is reset because they're like, hey, Yumi, Ulrich is like, hey, Yumi, at least we know how to get your parents back together. Instead of being like, good point, she snaps at them and she says, no, I'm never going to wear that stupid costume again. And I'm like,
Yeah, that's why I was like, okay, so it undid all the bad shit, but like it didn't like that everything that we just saw still just occurred.
no, because that's what I meant when they were like, at least we know how to get your parents together, because it's a day or two prior now and the play hasn't happened yet. And so there, Ulrich is implying, hey, we can still get your parents together by doing the same
I
thing.
no, I see what you're saying. I saw it a different way. You could very well be correct, and I could be wrong. I'm just saying like how I like why I was confused.
Right. The first time I watched this, I was like, what is happening?
What?
Yeah. And so Jeremy, with his infinite wisdom, is like, I agree with Yumi. You see, Ulrich, you're going to have to sacrifice yourself one last time. What's the conclusion here? They convince him to play Romeo again, and he does. But this time, Yumi is hiding behind a stage piece and whispering the lines to Ulrich. So he's delivering them a little bit better.
Yeah, and someone pulls a rope and pulls up the stage piece, showing that Yumi and someone else are hiding behind. It was like a cardboard bush,
Yeah,
a
it's like
wooden
a
bush.
stage piece for a bush.
And then the audience sees them and starts laughing. So once again, Yumi gets laughed at on stage for
And the
different
nerd that
reasons,
was
but
supposed to play Romeo is now playing the guard, and everybody laughs at the guard again in the audience. What is funny about the guard?
I
Is it because it's a bit part and we should laugh at people who don't have speaking roles? What is the French humor there that I'm missing?
I don't know. I also don't care at this point.
Yeah, so both of the parents have been bamboozled. They're talking to each other and they're like, where's Yumi? I thought she had a part in the play. Like you said, Jeremy kind of looks at the camera and wiggles his eyebrows and he pulls up a rope. And both Ulrich and Yumi are behind the stage piece, the bush. And then the audience like bursts into laughter. That's the funniest thing ever. And Yumi's parents like hold hands and they laugh together and everything ended okay.
Ba 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 ba. But yeah,
That's actually how it ends. Oh, and
that
Sissy's angry. She's like yelling at everyone, calling them Philistine and saying, you don't understand. This is a tragedy, not a comedy. I quit.
I suspect her like raging at everyone is probably a regular thing that happens in this show.
Yeah, I like her. I feel her.
Yeah, yeah, I get it.
Yep. I was a
Uh,
drama kid, so.
Anyway, that was
Do, do,
episode
do, do,
15
do,
of
do,
Code
do,
Lyoko.
do, do, do,
That
do, do,
was
do, do,
a
do,
thing
do,
that
do.
we just talked about.
Yep.
But so Cal, what did you think of
Here we
old
are
Lyoko?
going far. I like the intro.
God.
Watching the episode a third time got better each time. The first time I really did not like that. It's a kids show. Just like Gravity Falls, I was an adult and I completely missed. Um, the train. Well, Lasercomb, the last episode, we watched an episode, a Halloween episode of Gravity Falls. It was all right, and I'm kind of feeling that with this.
You said that you were too old for Gravity Falls though, but like I was 31 the first time I saw that show. It's not like
it was
I'm
it
older
was
than
more
you.
clever.
It's not like I grew up with that shit.
But that's what I mean. I feel like you had said that you were too old to have enjoyed or watched this. I feel like that for shows that I never watched in general. However, Gravity Falls, the voice acting is great. The jokes can be like really great. This is from a different era. It's French. It clearly didn't have the same budget. The animation is a little weird and experimental. But you know what? It grew on me. I thought I was going to come into this and just rip it apart. I think I hate it much less than you do. I would even dare to say I don't hate it.
Well,
but you know what? We are on. If we're not anything, we're honest. On here.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Bemused Horseman, but I hated this show. I you had said to me not to judge the show in its entirety based on this episode, and I get where you're coming from there.
But he does.
But
I
do.
Will.
But I do because CGI is very cheap. It's bad. The voice acting's bad. I don't like most of the characters. I feel like I could watch any episode of this show and feel the exact same way about it. Because
it's better in French.
Because those are all elements that I assume are consistent throughout each episodes. And yeah, like the plot of this episode is dumb, like fucking laughing, like sentient laughing gas, like it's stupid. But like things like my issues with like the finding the characters really unlikable, like the bad voice acting, etc., like that stuff's gonna persist throughout the entire
Predator
series.
Ulrich.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm sorry, man. I don't like this show. But you know what? Cal like seems to at least dislike it less. So we appreciate the fact that you've been supporting us on Patreon for the past few months, and
I think the intro's slapping. I could see it like growing on me. The only thing, whatever, like as far as it goes, the only criticism I'd have is Lyoko, the virtual world, is incredibly claustrophobic and small and dull. It's just dull. Go and watch Reboot, and it's a city. There's so much things going on. It's moving, even with simplest sets. And maybe it had a bigger budget. It had a team that was used to 3D modeling.
The world being barren is very much a budgetary thing. Like even you go back to like the early episodes of Beast Wars, like the exterior scenes are very barren, and that was because
everything's just a canyon.
Yeah, and that was because of budget.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious what like Lyoko looks like 50 episodes from here. I bet you it's a lot better if it had that many episodes, right? Like what, 97?
97, yeah. Well,
yeah, so
they're out
Netflix.
There. They're out there.
It's on Canadian Netflix, at least.
It's on Canadian Netflix. I didn't realize that, so I bought an episode of this episode on iTunes. Bought it on the iTunes store.
The funny thing is, by the way,
$2.
I use Christopher's Netflix. Like I have a profile with his Netflix. I do.
Yeah. So I
that's like extra salt in the wound for you.
I wasted $1.99 on this episode. Well, because
but you know what you support. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Oh, nothing. It's fine.
You went to like Just Watch, or you tried seeing what it was on?
Yeah, and Just Watch said it wasn't available on anything, so I was
Just Watch is full of shit sometimes.
Just Watch. It's a great service, but it's not it's only
Perfect.
correct about like 90% of the time, I find.
90% of the time, it works 100% of the time.
100% of the time. Also, controversial opinion here as someone who has now watched one episode of this and the first 6 episodes of Reboot the Guardian Code. Reboot the Guardian Code is also not a very good show. It's better than this.
I haven't watched I haven't watched any Guardian Code.
Not yet.
I will let you know when oh no. Am I gonna have to watch a lot of Guardian Code?
We have a reboot podcast.
Say it ain't so. So Bemused Horseman, if you want to do a Code Lyoko podcast, I'll do it.
That's all on you guys. I won't even produce that.
We can do it, man. And
Anyway,
watch that like just become like super popular. Anyways, that's Code Lyoko.
That's Code Lyoko. This has been episode 10 of the LaserComb podcast. We'll be back next week to talk about a show that probably only me and Cal remember. This was his choice. Extreme Ghostbusters, a show that lasted 1 season in 1997. I did watch this show because I grew up loving Ghostbusters, and when Extreme, because everything was extreme in the 90s, when Extreme Ghostbusters came around, I was like, oh, sweet. And I watched the show, and I liked it just fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Cal picked that for next week. So what we're gonna do right now is we are going to
Live
go
on the air.
We are going to go to the trusty numbergenerator.org website. And Extreme Ghostbusters had 40 episodes, so random numbers between 1 and 40, and we're gonna go. Start. I don't know why I'm mouthing sound effects. Anyway, we're gonna hit stop and land on 29.
29.
29.
Which is I got it. Till death do us start.
Okay.
A yuppie seeks protection from a dangerous ghost bride that he unwittingly releases from an old boarded up wishing well.
Oh, you know what? I think I kind of remember this episode, actually.
I don't. I was hoping we get the horrifying clown one. By the way, a couple months ago, I watched the clown episode, like on YouTube or something.
Right.
Ooh, it was unsettling.
Well,
because they can infect people and turn them into evil clowns.
Yeah. Next week we'll be back with LaserComb podcast number 11, where we'll be talking about the 29th episode of Extreme Ghostbusters. If you want to pick a show to make us suffer through, go to patreon.com/lasercomb at the $10 and up tier. You get to do that. Doesn't matter what show it is. We'll cover it, as is evidenced by this week's episode of the podcast.
It's even more, what's funny? When I watched this like the first time, I was like, oh man, I can't wait to rip this apart. And then I watched it a bit more and I liked it. And I watched it again, like while we're reviewing, and I'm like, this all right. It's not perfect by any means, but it's original.
I'm the one who will get unfollowed on Twitter.
Yay! So if you want to, I can't wait for us to watch something that I hate and that you absolutely love. I was okay with Gravity Falls.
Didn't you hate Strangers with Candy? I guess I didn't.
Did I not hide that? Neither. You disliked it. I really disliked it. It's one of those that when we reviewed it, I appreciated it a little bit more.
Yeah, and we had a guest host on that episode, Kate Rambo.
She was gracious.
And like her enthusiasm for I got a little caught up with her enthusiasm for the show.
Infectious enthusiasm, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I'm
It had
sure
funny bits. I'll give it that.
I'm sure our time will come where you vehemently hate something that I end up really liking. Um, I I I don't even know if that like if I don't even know if that's possible really because like
Oh,
we've talked about a lot of shit on like this and various other podcasts that we do, and like we're either both like really on board with something, really against something, or
or close enough.
close enough, or it's like
Yeah.
if you really dislike something, I'm kind of in the middle, or
Or
vice
vice
versa.
versa. Yeah. Nobody.
There, we're not like we haven't really. I don't think we've had any like truly like polarized opinions about anything.
This is the closest where I'm like, Code Lyoko has potential, and you're like, burn it to the ground.
Kill it with fire.
The
Uh,
fire. They'll stomp it out with their foreheads.
God,
Think of how expensive hats are in that world.
that joke was better than this show. Anyway, follow us. Go to Facebook on social media. Go to facebook.com/lazorcomb, LAZORCOMB. It's the central hub of this and all the other podcasts we do. You can follow us on Twitter. I am at Lasercomb, spelled the same way. Cal, you are at Neo_Cal with a K.
That's me.
As I mentioned, we'll be back next week with the 30 or 29th episode of Extreme Ghostbusters. And until then, I've been one of your hosts, Christopher Siege.
And I'm NeoCal.
And until next week, thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.
I am transformed. I mean, Code Lyoko.